Hey everybody, so as you know, we're working on the next few episodes, so that means this is a filler week. And this one is actually brought to you by a new sponsor, Squarespace. Yeah, you've probably heard of them. They've actually reached out and they want to help us out. So thank you, Squarespace. We'll talk about them more later. So as you know, last time I did the states of India, and I asked you guys what country would you like me to do administrative divisions next? And a lot of you said Russia. The problem is the Russian Federation is broken down into 85 federal subjects into 5 different categories. We don't really have a lot of time for 85 anything on geography now. However, we do have enough time to cover one of the categories, the republics of Russia. For those of you that don't know much about Russia, it is actually a very diverse country with lots of different types of people living in it, not just Russians. The republics are kind of like the non-Russian ethnic enclaves that have their own level of administration. These subjects have the right to establish their own language and constitution. The other subjects don't have these rights. Today there are 22 of them, and I will try my best to explain. Here we go. The first one, Adygea, capital Maykop. The minority group represented, the Adige people. They are one of the 12 Circassian tribes, and they are one of the 3 federal subjects that have Circassian people as their minority group. They even use the Circassian flag as their republic flag. Culturally, they are mountain folk. They have a series of traditions and customs. They love playing music with those shishipin violins that look like daggers. They have these really interesting traditional dances where they like go on their toes. It looks kind of painful. They have these halush deep fried pastries with cheese in them. Ooh. There's a lot of ancient tradition here. Like they still have these tablestone house things. Nobody quite knows exactly what they are. Some say that they're tombs. Under tradition, a groom is never supposed to meet his bride's parents. Insert offensive joke here. The Altai Republic. Capital, Gorno-Altaysk. Minority group represented, the Altai, whom are a Turkic group. The Altai people come from 10 different clans. There's the UNESCO heritage site that can be found here, the Ukok Plateau. It has these interesting stone structures that are believed to be burial sites, but some people say that they're like magnetic instruments that direct the cosmic energy of the universe. Yeah, there's a lot of new age tourism in this area. It's also the place where they found the Siberian ice maiden, the mummy that was preserved in permafrost. Bashkortostan. Capital is Ufa. Minority group represented, the Bashkirs. This is the most populated republic out of all the republics. It was the first ethnic autonomous area established in 1917. They come from the Ural Mountains, and their flag even has the Kuray flower. It has 7 petals representing the 7 families that gave birth to the Bashkir peoples. Music is huge here. They even make woodwind flutes by chopping up reeds from the Kuray plant. The capital city has a huge monument dedicated to this guy. He's like considered their hero. Further out east, Buryatia. Capital, Ulan-Ude. Ethnic minority represented by about 30% of the population, the Buryats. They are a Mongolic people group who are actually related to the Mongols and the Kalmyks. This republic is right next to Lake Baikal, Russia's largest and deepest lake in the world. Because of that, they're not allowed to really industrialize their area because they don't want to pollute the lake. It's so important. Culturally speaking, it's very interesting because they kind of like fuse Buddhism with shamanism. They have unique traditions like bone fortune telling. They also have great hot springs. Supposedly the waters can heal you from like anything and everything. Now the next one you may have heard in the news a few times. Chechnya, capital Grozny. Obviously the minority group represented are the Chechen people at about 95%, and they are the lowest alcohol drinking region of Russia, partially because of the Islam thing. Basically, when Russia came in, Stalin got suspicious and exiled a lot of them to Kazakhstan, and then he brought them back. And then in the 90s, they tried to declare independence, but then Russia was like, nope. And that's where the subsequent Chechen wars began. There's a series of separatist movements and terrorist attacks. And to this day, it's kind of died down, but the separatist activity still kind of lingers. It's like it could ignite if someone pushes the buttons, but right now it's kind of like at a standstill. I mean, the people just want to live their lives like normal. Otherwise, though, they actually have very beautiful scenery. I mean, if you're one of those like controversy region tourists, then you might want to put this on your bucket list. Chuvashia, capital Cheboksary. Minority group represented at about 2/3 of the population. The Chuvash, known as the Silver people. Chuvash people are kind of like the strange outcast cousins of the Turkic groups because their language is the most isolated and kind of difficult for the other ones to understand. It's kind of like the Icelandic of Turkic languages. But if there's one thing this place is famous for, it has to be beer. Everybody knows Chuvashia makes beer. Many households brew their own version and they add their own little secret ingredients, and they have all these nice little happy songs and dances that go with it. Next one, get ready because this has a lot of controversy. If you're Ukrainian, you're not gonna like hearing this, but I kind of have to cover it. Crimea, capital Simferopol, which is also a federal city. The represented minority group being the Crimean Tatars, who only make up about 12% of the population. They used to be the majority, but then again, in former USSR times, they were exiled exiled to Uzbekistan, and then some of them were allowed to come back. However, today the majority of the population is Russian. This is the largest dispute area with Russia and Ukraine today. Basically, this whole area used to be under complete Ukrainian authority, but then in 2014, a bunch of pro-Russian separatists and the Russian military got involved and they issued a takeover. Most countries across the world do not recognize this as a part of Russia, but it kind of operates and functions under Russian authority today. It's really confusing. Also, it's kind of like a very geographically advantageous location as it kind of gives access to the Black Sea and then further to the Mediterranean. But yeah, hotbed of dispute. Oh, and there's ancient Greek sites over here as well because lots of history. Dagestan, the gateway to the Caucasus. Capital, Makhachkala. The minority group represented, there's actually not a single one, but it's kind of like 10 main minority groups. The largest ones being the Caucasian groups, the Avars, Dargins, and there's also the Turkic, Kumiks, and Azerbaijanis. Overall, over 100 nationalities and over 30 languages are spoken in this area. It is the most racially diverse region in all of Russia. About 80% of the population identifies as Muslim. The land has lots of beautiful mountains and forests and fortresses. If you come here, chances are you will definitely find a burka overcoat. Not burka, burka. The people here love to dance with daggers. Recently, just like in Chechnya in 2008 and 2012, there was kind of like a wave of guerrilla warfare that was going on. The Russian government got involved. It got kind of messy. But yeah, it's interesting because there's like so many different people groups and it's just they all have their own little story here. Ingushetia, the smallest of all the federal subjects in Russia. Capital, Magas. Minority group represented being the Ingush. They are very similar to the Chechens. They're like the little brother of the Chechens and they speak almost the same language and the majority of them are Muslim. Back in World War II times, Stalin deported a lot of them to Kazakhstan. And then when they were allowed to come back, they realized a lot of the Ossetian people took over what they claimed to be their land and there was a lot of internal conflict. Culturally today, a lot of them don't really quite know the extent of their history since a lot of it depended on oral tradition and songs. And just a heads up, this is probably one of the most poorest regions of all of Russia. And if you go, there will be a lot of security checkpoints. If you're a man, it's not really recommended that you grow a beard because you might be mistaken for an Ingush rebel. I mean, you guys have seen me with facial hair, so I think I'll be good. Kabardino-Balkaria, capital, Nalchik. Two main groups populate most of this area at about 70%. The Kabarde, who are Circassians, just like the other ones we talked about, and the Balkars, whom are Kipchak Turkic. Out of all the 12 Circassian tribes, the Kabarde are the largest ones. And even though the majority of them identify as Muslim, there's still like about 12% that still kind of practice the traditional Habze faith. It involves a lot of nature stuff and spirits. The land has beautiful gorges and hills, and the tallest peak in all of Russia and Europe, if you consider it Europe. People here are also known for being quite athletic. This guy won the first gold for Russia in the Rio Olympics. Kalmykia, capital Elista. Minority group represented, the Kalmyks, who make up about 60% of the population. This is probably the strangest demographic anomaly in all of Russia. Why? Because Kalmyks are the westernmost Buddhist community in the entire world, and they are the only region in all of Europe in which Buddhism is the majority religion. Today you can see traditional Buddhist temples all over the capital Elista. According to tradition, their ancestors, the Oirats, migrated from Central Asia to find better land, or maybe they tried to escape from the Mongol tribes. Nobody really quite knows. But the point is, they came here and brought Buddhism. Historically, the Russians made a lot of deals with them, and then they deported them, and then they brought them back, and today it looks really Buddhist-y Russian. Karachay-Cherkessia, capital Cherkess. Just like Kabardino-Balkaria, they have two main groups, the Turkic Karachay peoples and the Circassian Cherkesk peoples. Just like Kabardino-Balkaria, a portion of the population here still actually kind of maintains the ancient Circassian religions. The people here love horse riding. There's also like a rite of passage for like boys to becoming men when they're 9 years old. Like they have to get a whip from their father or grandfather and ride the horse with that whip. Karelia, capital Petrozavodsk. Minority group represented, the Karelians, whom are the lowest minority group in a republic at less than 10%. The Karelians are some of the last few remaining Uralic peoples on the planet, and they are the cousins of Finnish people. They speak a language that is very similar. Some people say it's just a dialect of Finnish. However, unfortunately, unless a revival happens, the future of the Karelian language and culture is looking kind of bleak and it's kind of dying out. And even though this is the Russian Federation flag, the Karelian people have their own Karelian flag, which looks like this. And they're known for making these really cool like egg pie. It's called Karelian pie, but it's like a pastry. It's really good. It's really good. Khakassia, capital Abakan. Minority group represented, the Khakas. Most scholars agree that they are most likely related to the Kyrgyz people in Kyrgyzstan. The cool thing though is that this place was kind of like the crossroads where a lot of people passed through in ancient times. So it's kind of labeled as Siberia's archaeological Mecca. There's so many ancient sites found here. You have things like stones and obelisks, ruined cities, forts, and rock drawings. drawings, and they have that 7-story tall burial mound. The Komi Republic, capital Siktivar. I don't even know at this point. Minority group represented, the Komi, at about a quarter of the population. Komi is like the Ural Mountain capital. It offers some of the best tourism for the Dividing Range. They have the Virgin Komi Forest, a UNESCO heritage site, and this national park, which is beautiful. They also kind of have a history of hosting some of the most brutal gulags in all of Russian history. But the forests are nice. They have their own food, and they have their own traditions based off of pre-Christian shamanism, and they still kind of keep those traditions alive a little bit. The Mari El Republic, capital Yoshkar Ola, minority group represented, the Mari. Located in the Volga territory, the Mari people are kind of called like Europe's last pagans. These people actually do keep a lot of the pre-Christian pagan traditions alive. It's kind of like what Russia used to look like before Christianity came in. Half of all the women know how to play the gusli. A lot of times they have an all-Mari prayer service in which the entire community comes together. They bring a lot of food. They sacrifice the bones, skin, and organs of an animal to the fire. Mordovia, capital Saransk, minority group represented, the Mordvin. And here's the thing, the land here is pretty flat, but they still love like cross-country skiing. These people are really big on wood carving, and they are really good at it. It's not uncommon to see a lot of traditional Mordvin houses that look like log cabins. It's like they sand the wood very nice and well. And they also have, disputably, the most famous puppet theater in all of Russia. North Ossetia Alania, capital Vladikavkaz, minority group, the Ossetians, and they are the only Iranian people group that have their own republic in Russia, as in they're descended from people from Iran. But the thing is, the majority of them are Christian. Anyway, it was also historically part of the Silk Road, and the people here made a lot of money back in the day. Today it has lots of minerals and spa resorts. But then there's the controversy with South Ossetia. We talked about this in the Georgia episode. Internationally recognized as part of Georgia, however, administratively it kind of falls under Russian jurisdiction since 2008, after the Russo-Georgian War. In order to get in from the Georgia side, you actually need a passport. Next one, Yakutia, or the Sakha Republic. Minority group represented, the Yakut. This is a very unique spot in Russia. They are like the most East Asian looking people in Russia. They hold fast to their traditions. They have a lot of their own traditional costumes and food. They like to perform circus acts. They love horses. They even have a summer festival in which everybody just kind of does their own cool thing. There's a ton of diamond mining out here. And Yakutsk, the capital, is like the second coldest major city in the world. Tatarstan, capital is Kazan. Minority group at about half of the population are the Tatars. These guys are like the brothers of Bashkortostan. And out of all the secondary languages taught in Russia, Tatar is actually one of the most prevalent. Basically, a long time ago, the Volga Bulgars mixed in with the Kipchak Turks, and then bam, the Tatars were born. Today, they're one of the most economically developed regions in all of Russia. Tons of oil here. They have these 3 UNESCO heritage sites. And yeah, the place is kind of like a mix between Orthodox and Muslim. And there's even an all-religions temple that was built here. Tuva, capital, Kaisel, minority group, the Tuvan people. And it's weird because these people are like an offshoot cousin of the Mongols, even though they speak a Turkic language. I mean, at one point, they even were part of Mongolia. They have very similar traditions and customs to the Mongolian people. It's one of the few places where you can find steppe nomadic lifestyle traditions. Just like the Mongolians, they have their own version of throat singing, which sounds kind of eerie because it uses like 2 tones with your throat. And just like the Mongolians, there's a noticeable Buddhist majority. Yeah, it's like Buddhist Russians. Hi, Kalmykia. And finally, Udmurtia. Capital, Ijevsk. Minority group at about 30%, the Udmurts. They are known as the Meadow people, and they have one of the highest concentrations of people with red hair in all of Russia. They even have a red hair festival. They have their own national epic called the Dorjivny. They play it with lots of strings and wood instruments. Otherwise, remember on Flag/Fan Friday, that person visited this place? And they sent me a bunch of stuff from Udmurtia, like this magnet. And I think you were from Finland, and you said like it was interesting because you could kind of understand what they were saying because they're kind of like your cousins. I don't know, I feel like a lot of Finnish and Estonian and maybe even Hungarian people might be interested in these areas because it's like they kind of technically are distant relatives of you guys. I don't know, if you're Finnish, Estonian, or Hungarian, what do you think about the people, the Ural people from these areas? Anyway, that's it. All the republics of the Russian Federation. As you can see, it's kind of interesting because it's like they each kind of have their own little story, and they all kind of had their own little role that they played in the history of Russia. It's a really cool place. I would love to travel there and maybe blog about it. And if you would like to blog about it or share your experiences, you might want to make a website. Great transition. Just want to say a huge thank you to Squarespace. If you don't know who they are, they're a great website making company. Check them out. They make it so easy. Even idiot people like me can make websites with them. It's great stuff. And if you go to squarespace.com/geography now, you can get a 10% discount if you want to start it up. I'm sure a lot of you guys have great ideas on websites you could possibly make. And they have a lot of other custom tools that you can use and make to kind of make the perfect website according to how you want to make it. So yeah, I just want to say a huge thanks once again, Squarespace. You guys rock. Thank you for reaching out to Geography Now. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. I got to work on the next country episode. I hope you have a good one. Stay cool. Stay tuned.